Daily Cuban News. My name is Dimitri Rally.
And I'm Cal Spurlock.
Now we will start off at the beginning of the Cuban Revolution on July 29, 1953, when 160 rebels under the leadership of Fidel Castro launched an attack on Moncada barracks and were later put into prison. The next year, in 1954, Fulgencio Batista, the current president of Cuba at the time, dissolved the parliament and made himself dictator of Cuba.
Next, in May 1955, Fidel and his rebels that were put into prison by Batista are released, and Fidel and Raul Castro are introduced to Che Guevara in Mexico City. Soon after, in 1957, Castro's guerrillas take over an army outpost on the south coast and started gaining followers in Cuba.
On March 13, 1957, college students perform an unsuccessful attack on the presidential palace in Havana. On 1957, May 28th, Castro's 26th of July movement captures an army post on El Uvero, Mexico.
July 30th of 1957, Cuban rebel Frank Pice is killed in Santiago de Cuba by police while campaigning for the overthrow of Batista.
In 1958, the U.S. suspends shipments of arms to Batista's forces.
On March 17, 1958, Castro calls for a general revolt.
In 1958, Batista sends an army of 10,000 into the Sierra Maestra to destroy Castro's 300,000 armed guerrillas.
Next, on 1958, November 1st, a Cuban aircraft en route from Miami to Havana is hijacked by militants but crashes. The hijackers were trying to land at Sierra Crystal in eastern Cuba to deliver weapons to Raul Castro's rebels. Lastly, 1958, December 31st, Camilo Cienfuegos leads revolutionary guerrillas to victory in Yagauje, which led to the Che Guevara and Fidel Castro taking over the country.
Now to Cal for the secondary story.
In Cuba, before the revolution had started, they were trying to run a democratic government and were having some success at it, as they were ranked top charts in life expectancy and fifth in income per person. So Cuba wasn't too bad, but the Castro family had decided to start their long campaign to overthrow the government and shift to a communist party. Tons of people decided to side with the Castro family and eventually overthrew the Cuban government. Castro and his rebels used brinkmanship and surrogate to manipulate the current leader of Cuba. Overall, Cuba is still a third world country and very much behind most of the other countries in the world. Cuba is so far behind they are using cars from the 1950s, which are considered new for them. This just shows that communism never works, and it is never the solution to government problems.
Hi, I'm Tyler White, and this is my story on Che Guevara. Che Guevara was born in 1928 and was the guerrilla leader who really moved forward the communist movement in Cuba. When Castro and his family took over, Che became the leader of the firing squad in Cuba, which pretty much meant that he was one of the enforcers against the people that didn't agree with what Castro was trying to imply for the country. Che really followed Joseph Stalin in pulling the whole "here's your land, now farm it for us" policy. Although he was a mass murderer and holder of many crimes, he had some benefits. While living in the Sierra Maestra Mountains, he noticed that most of the families were living without electricity and bread. He helped out the community by building factories for making bread and supplying the families with some electricity. Che was executed by the Bolivian army for his crimes and will go down as one of the biggest communist figureheads ever.